All right. Hey, everyone. So, yesterday I gave a rock concert, and so this is quite a different audience today. But yeah, looking forward to it. So, today, yep, we're sticking with the visualization stuff, but from quite a different angle now. And yeah, so my name is Kyano Levi. You might know me as Max Zen on GitHub. I'm the author of quite a few packages. Considering there are 450 online, this is more than 1% of the packages. And yeah, so this was my first one. I think the first one on the package manager at all. And yeah, it has to do with my research on quantum computing. So it's also for visualizing diagrams. There's Tidy. This is something that many people use for yeah, writing documentation for their packages. And finally, Zero, and I mentioned that because we'll come to that back again a bit later. And so this is for number formatting for science and stuff and number alignment. Right. So I'm here today because I want to share a certain vision with you, a vision that I've been working on for like more than a year probably right now, on and off. But yeah, so it's partly realized, and there are some missing things yet. And yeah, but let me share that with you today. So this is Lilac. Lilac is a it's a framework. It's a library for writing diagrams and stuff. So these are just some things that you can already do with it. I'm very much looking forward to the pixel stuff where you can the image decoder, because then you can get rid of these nasty edges in in these pixel graphics, in the heat maps. But yeah, so there's already a lot of stuff implemented, but there's a big thing missing, and yeah, so this is going to be the key thing, the ingredient we want. So I don't think it should be really necessary, but let's justify why we work on this today. So I went to the archive. This is a publishing platform where you publish preprints before finalizing your draft and sending it to some journal. And I crunched the numbers, and yeah, well, according to archive themselves, there are staggering more than 24,000 publications each month. So this is quite a lot. It's mostly computer science, chemistry, physics, and stuff like that, also medicine. And yeah, so usually you have some data to present, right? Most people do, and the table is not sufficient in many cases, so you need some diagrams and stuff. And I'm speaking from experience when I say that making a really good diagram can take really some time. So you want to convey a certain message, and you want to convey it clearly. You want to show all the parts, discriminate certain parts of the diagram, and this can be quite a hard challenge. And so this is something that I think should be super easy from the technical side, and so that you don't waste your time on figuring out bugs and stuff, and yeah, your configurations. So the goal is, can we get some publication ready, really nice graphics and stuff with a streamlined workflow? So yeah, we don't need to waste our times, and yeah, don't fiddle with too much stuff. Let's take a brief look at where we are right now. So these are two of the most common tools for plotting, I'd say. There are more tools, also using UI stuff, which makes it easier for like people that don't program. But let's compare it to these two, because they are more in the mind of what I'm working on, and I think they're pretty mature, or like the most mature tools out there, maybe. So there's Matplotlib. This is a great Python package. I like it personally. It's easy to use, fairly easy to use. There's infinite power in there, and it's not too much to learn. You can get started pretty quickly. It runs quickly because it uses NumPy under the hood. So it's C compiled. So this is a good thing, but one of the main issues is how do you integrate it in your paper, for example, or into your presentation. And some people really just don't care, but I do care to make the font the same, the font size the same. Sometimes you have certain colors that you want to reference, and yeah, okay. Yeah, and you want to match that or reference it in the main text, and so you can do this. It's a lot of work, and then you change something in your document, and then right, you need to go back, recompile your graphics, and so. Right. On the other hand, we have PGFplots, which is also a really great tool. It's a LaTeX package, and it's awesome because it gives you the integration with the document right away without doing anything. It's a great way of dealing with presets and stuff, but it's slow. Yeah, it slows down the compilation of the document by like an order of magnitude maybe. And there are workarounds, and they make new problems, and so yeah, we don't really want that. And also, it's really hard to learn and to use. And yeah, I think ChatGPT can help you with this, but I learned it the hard way. And yes, I mean, I do like it, but still, when we ask ourselves the question, what do we really want? And it's, of course, all of this. So we want the green ticks, but we don't want the red crosses. And note that the packages are a bit complementary in the features, right? Or on the pros and cons. So I actually believe that we can get all of it with Typst. And I'm not pitching Typst here because I don't need to in this audience. But so we get some advantages just for free, like the quick preview, for example. You can work on your stuff and get the output immediately while you're tuning your colors, while you're tuning your marker size and stuff. And I think this matters if you really want to perfectionize your stuff, and this helps. So you don't have to wait a minute or even 10 seconds for each recompilation. And so yeah, this is one thing. And then we will get in the future customization through show and set rules. And I think this is one of the most powerful points, and yeah, the main part of this vision I want to share. So in a second. If you find any cons of using Typst, then please let's talk after the talk. Okay, brief overview. This is how you use this package. So we prepare some data, some X values, some Y values, and then there's some diagram function that you need to call. Everything's pretty much more oriented at Matplotlib and then PGFplots, because I think the user experience is much better in Matplotlib. But we don't have mutable objects in Typst, so this is one function call. And you can set the title, X label, and indefinite amount of other stuff. But the main thing is you can add plot objects. Yeah, so these can be plots, but there's also scatter, color mesh, box plots, and anything. So yeah, this should be familiar if you know Matplotlib. It's from the style, it's oriented at that. And yeah, so this is how you do it. Plug in some X and Y arrays and give it a label, and then will show up in a legend also. And yep. So by the way, this is directly compiled. This is not an image, so this is a Typst presentation. I mean, using good old Tuying. So yeah, this is basically how you work with this. And now the question is, what if you want a different font, or maybe the ticks outside and not inside and stuff like that? And so this, now we're coming to the configuration part. And let's dream for a second. Let's say we had already user-defined types, and then we could write diagram as some type with a lot of fields and some plots as children and the basic default show rule. Then we would have axis would be a type, the tick would be a type, the labels and stuff. And yeah, we don't actually want types as themselves, because like we can use dictionaries, they're pretty good. We want to use the set and the show rules. So this is the main thing, why we want this. The issue is so desperate that I have actually a label for issues on GitHub for this, for things that wait until this is there. Right. Let's go through 3 advantages or 3 cases where I think this would be a game changer. So one is composition of features. And here we see a diagram, ladies and gentlemen, and it has a lot of text nodes. So there's the title. We have X labels, Y labels. There are tick labels, legend stuff, and of course you can't do it right as a package developer. So the user needs to specify the text size for all of these, or at least it should be possible to do that in a way. And the way Matplotlib does it is sort of like all these elements know about certain text settings. For example, you can set the X label of a plot and pass the font size as a parameter. And the same for the Y label and for the title. But there's not only font size, there's also font color. What about font style, font family? Yeah, and a lot of different things. And it's not just a font. It could be any other stuff. And there's a really neat solution that we could have, or we will have in Typst, which is show set rules. And this disentangles these two features, like the labels and the notion of text. And so here, if we had a type for X label, we can just say, whenever we encounter an X label, set the text to 10 points or whatever. And this gives us a lot of flexibility, and it disentangles these features in a way that these X label, the title and everything, they don't even know that text exists. So it doesn't have to be incorporated into the package. It's one source less for bugs. It's less API and stuff. And yeah, so I think this is something that will also help the user in the end, because they don't need to learn API stuff. Like, how is this called? How do I set the text size? It's pretty intuitive once you get to know, or how to use types in general. And so this will be stuff that's for free and reduces the learning curve in the end. Just one out of like hundreds of examples that look like that. All right, second stage would be to do this cross package. And I promise I will mention 0 again. It's not an accident that I wrote 0, and it's not just because this is something we need. It's also that I already had this use case in mind, that there would be some package that does number formatting for everyone, and then you just need to configure how your language, how your country formats numbers, and have that done everywhere. And so this is why Lilac uses 0 to format all these numbers. And now if we want to go ahead, and I mean, we're in Germany, so we don't want to use the X maybe for German text, so it's a dot, center dot, and we have a comma as a decimal separator, right? And with 0 in the future, you will be able to write set 0.num, for example, and specify all these things. And then you just need to do it once and for all globally in your document at the top. And this will affect tables, wherever you call num, but also the figures at the same time. And you don't need to do it separate, multiple times in each library. And yeah, so this is cool that even across package boundaries, you get this feature composition. And yeah, I have a third point. So it's about presets. So you will find yourself having multiple diagrams, probably with similar settings, and then you have a certain style that you want to apply to all of these diagrams, and let's call this a preset. And we don't need to invent a new mechanism for presets like PGFplots or Typst does, for example. They have a huge mechanism with almost a framework just for configuring stuff, and we could just use basic things in types like a show rule. We can write some function that sets all these attributes. I'm just putting some examples here. For example, we had get general text size to whatever footnote size or whatever. Say we wanted ticks outside, the subticks also, and some legend fill and stuff. And then we just use this preset locally by calling show on this function. And yep, so this is a bit the gist of it. There's already so much great things in the language of types that we don't need to invent many things that usually frameworks or packages need to invent on their own. just to compensate and make the package so powerful. And yeah, so if done right, you can also do it wrong, where you can't do the set rules and stuff. But then I think this will really help in reducing API burden, reduce the burden on the learner, on the end user, and yeah. So let me come to. Oh, we're good on time. Yeah, then we have more time for questions. So, when will we be able to use it? I'm afraid not right now, probably, because I don't want to rewrite everything of that. So we could invent some mechanism, some stuff for configuring all the options that you want to configure, but then we need to tear everything down again and rewrite it with user-defined types. And I'm not sure this is really a good choice, maybe. Zero, for example, is really, there's not a lot in Zero. Yeah, there's some tricks that I worked hard on, but really it's just one type. Oh, yeah, but we're already having performance problems because using state for, how many of you are aware of state and how it works? Yeah, so everyone probably, or most of them. And yeah, it really hits your performance bad. And so, yeah. And I think we'll run into more issues with a package as large as that. So, but it's already in use. So this is the good news. So I know people that wrote their thesis using this package already, and using slides and stuff. And yes, it works. And so you can get contact me and get a free, 100% free copy, and to modify freely if you don't like the defaults in some places. And so, yeah, this is one thing you can do. You can also say, if you share this vision, you could say, okay, I'd like to contribute, and we'll find a way to, yeah, to work together on this, because it's really quite a big thing. I'm working on a documentation website on the site, and so because it's also something you need at this point. And yeah, so if you have any questions, then you're welcome to ask them now. And yeah, and of course this is also done with the package. All right, questions? Yes?
So I recall when working with Matplotlib that when you increase the font size, that labels start colliding with your diagram.
Yeah.
Is that something that's, yeah, could you elaborate on how that's taken care of with this?
Yeah.
Like if you increase this globally or per
There's
label, how will that work out?
There's actually an algorithm that takes care of that a bit. I mean, it's heuristic because you can get really, really long labels in a way, but it takes the font size into account and decides how many ticks it can place there, and you can give some directions on the density of ticks you want to have, and so it really does all of this automatically. You don't need to, like with PGFplots, you don't need to say from, to, and step size and stuff, tick distance. So yeah, right. But if needed, you can say, yeah, do it automatically, manually also. Yes, right. Yeah.
How well does it integrate with Python? Like, is there a workflow where you can program in Python and generate a plot with Lilac?
You won't believe it. I'm thinking about that already. Yeah. Yes, the division is, maybe I can get some, this would be great to have some, to work it out in Python and then export that to some Typst code that you just can call. There's one major issue, and this is, where does your data go? Because your data could come in from any source, from process with NumPy, and I can't like write a port, like some machine that ports general Python code to Typst. But you know, but so this is an issue. But once that is solved, this should be possible, because the API is close to Matplotlib in general. And yeah, good call. More questions or wishes? Yeah.
I was confused about the thing earlier. How would you actually solve this? Because right now I'm imagining the workflow to be, you're do some calculation or data input reading in Python, then calculate some further results, and then you just load them into some file, and then Lilac reads the file with the data itself and generates plots from them. How would you actually do differently? Because I can't imagine how you would get the data or the calculation stuff from Python directly into.
Yes, you would probably need to generate some JSON file for all the data. Yes, yeah. This thing would not be a Typst program. It would be a Python package where you can say, here, this is my Matplotlib code, and spit me out some Typst code and the data separately, probably something like that. Yeah, I'm open for inputs to that. Yeah.
And another question is, how does Lilac actually work right now without types? Because
it's written in Typst, so completely in Typst.
No, types, not types, but...
Oh, without types, with functions.
Okay.
The issue is, for example, you can't specify how long the ticks are. I mean, I could write something that does that, but imagine you only call diagram, right? And you need to pass objects to diagram, and diagram needs to pass these options about the tick length to the axis, and the axis needs to pass it down to each tick. And so this is a huge overhead in communication of parameters and stuff. And so I want to avoid that.
Yeah, so currently Lilac looks a lot different from what you imagined in this presentation here. Because, so right now it looks a lot different from what you imagined.
Yes, a bit, yeah. I mean, many things work just like that. I mean, this is all compiled directly in the source code of this presentation. But, you know, I really want this shortcut where you can say, give me directly the change the setting without going through all these steps. Yes.
I think it would be awesome if you could share the source code for the presentation.
Yes, please.
It's a bit messy because I hacked it together quickly. But yes, of course. Right now or like in general?
Wherever. We will probably upload somewhere and then you can just...
Yeah, maybe we'll also have time in the break. But yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm particularly proud of the contour algorithm. That was so hard, and you know, and you can't make Boolean operations on shapes and types, except that you can by making loops like that. Like if you actually draw a path that looks like that, then it's white in the middle, and you can use this to make Boolean operations and to hack them together, and it works. I mean, it works. Yeah. Right, but this is still nasty, and this needs your work for image decoding. So, yeah, right. Thank you.